So now Donald Trump is president, and you have this populist in office, but he still has to work with the establishment. So what happens next?
Well, in a sense, he is the establishment.
Right, but he's espousing anti-establishment views.
Right.
So what happens next?
Well, yeah, of course I don't know, but
we all need a crystal ball.
Let me put it in a broader context. What sometimes does happen to populists when they finally get into office is that they do become the establishment and they lose their own political focus. The Greeks, Syriza, they run their campaign against the Troika in Europe, the bankers, the EU, the IMF. And they say that if we get into office, we're going to defy these guys. We won't let them push us around anymore. And that's the basic conflict that they run on. And they say, you know, the old Socialist Party would Panalytic socialists, they gave in to these guys. We're not going to. And so they get into the office and they give in to these guys. And they become now, in effect, a kind of other version of the Panalytic Socialist Party, and they're going to get voted out in a year. So sometimes what happens is that the populists try to do it, they get into office, they become the establishment, and they find, lo and behold, that they can do no better than their predecessors. Now, we can't tell what's going to happen with Trump. One of the things that interests me, and, you know, say interests and alarms, but is that if you listen to his inaugural address, it was an attempt of a guy who has won the presidency, who has all this power, again, to recreate the populist conflict between himself and Washington. That was the basic theme of the inaugural address.
Clean the swamp.
Yeah. So they are trying to continue that kind of politics and that logic. Now, when he gets to the point where he has to deal with the messy kind of details of Congress, get his bills passed and all that stuff, that's when he could get into trouble and find himself in the same stew as Syriza did in Greece. On the other hand, there is a scary possibility, and you know, I said that there were certain similarities you could find between the 20s and 30s and now. And you can sort of see the possibilities of this happening now, which is, you know, Trump does this stuff about travelers and immigrants from these 7 countries, okay? There's a big uproar, people protest, he modifies it a little, but they continue it. Then 2 months from now, there's a big terrorist attack. And the people say, you know, we're doing this on behalf of ISIS. And ISIS says, great, you know, or they either put him up to it. How does Trump respond then? Does he say, well, you know, I did X, Y, and Z because I knew things like this might happen. Now we have to go farther. We have to do A, B, and C in addition to that. Big protests start again. So anyway, you could see a kind of snowballing effect that was similar to what happened in the 20s and 30s and got us into a right-wing mess in Europe, especially in Central Europe. So I think that's the bad scenario, but we don't know what's going to happen at this point.